Hello, everyone. My name is Moise, here from the Youth Speakers Club. Joining me in today's session is Ms. Karis. Ms. Karis is a health, wellness, and performance coach, and her major goal is to help people like us, achieve their health goals through diet and lifestyle choices. Ms. Karis has been doing healthy food catering for events. She has a personal chef business, which helps families eat healthier. And just an interesting fact, she herself takes part in great activities such as triathlon sports and martial arts to keep healthy. Ms. Karis, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Moez. It's so great to be part of this. Thank you so much for inviting me. Of course, health is very important, especially these days with the COVID. Keeping our immune systems and keeping us healthy is so important. So I really appreciate you inviting me to come on today.
Thank you. So I definitely agree, and it's great to have you, Ms. Karis. Ms. Karis, I'd like to dive into the first question for today, and the question is, uh, what influences the diets we eat?
Well, there are a lot of factors actually. Too many to mention on here, but I would say that they probably go into three categories of genetics and family culture. So what's gone on before us and what sort of is affecting us, especially as we're younger. Then the stages of life that we're in, and then external factors. So I would say the first one, genetics and family. Genetics first is just basically the generations that come before us and what they've passed down to us. Hopefully, they're good genetics. Sometimes they're not as great, where it's maybe we end up with like diabetes, which affects our diet, or allergies. But then we can have the good genes. And as we're going to talk about a bit later, the blue zones, we have a really good genetics passing through the generations for 4 or 5 generations. Family culture, like where now that we're in our home, so do we have multi-generations living with us that sort of dictate what type of food we eat, and maybe it keeps it healthier, or within our cultural or religious not restrictions, but what we would want to eat. So then when we get into the stages of life, what we eat as a toddler, what we should eat as a toddler, obviously is different. It's nutrition dense, very important. Maybe not as much, obviously, but once you start to get into adolescence, puberty, adolescence, you're very active. So you need the calories, plus you need the good nutrition. And I mean, we've all gotten away, as we're younger with a, Big Mac or whatever, I think we can do a little bit, but what do you build on, to go into adult life? And that, depends on a lot of factors. Once you get into middle age, or well, even adulthood, you have your stresses that affect your diet, where you live, if you're traveling. And then as you get into middle age, that's when you have to start sort of restricting the calories a little bit, like the amount of food, but keep it, again, nutrition dense, like very good nutrition. And that will take you into, later life, hopefully into your hundreds. And then the other things are like the seasons of the year or where you live. Finland eats different than a warmer climate. The socioeconomics of the country. Do we live in a very poor country and we're just eating what's available, or are we an affluent country and do we have lots available to us? Like even the region we live in within a country, are they available to us, like good fruits, vegetables, farmers markets? Geographic location, again, I mentioned, and world stage. I mean, if there's a world war, look what happened, Second World War, all the rations. Of course, the diet's completely changed. And with COVID, again, of course, the transportation of goods was stalled in places. And so it wasn't, the shortages of food was upon us again. And that did affect it,
Right.
our diets. Yeah.
Ms. Karis, I think all the points you mentioned are very interesting because when you look at things such as income or where you live or culture, people don't often see how much of an impact these factors have on things as specific as our diet. Now, speaking of diet, I'm certain you know about the very special Okinawan diet. And so, leading into that, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what makes the Okinawan diet so special.
Okay, I can definitely do that. So I think most of people will know, or they may not, that Okinawa is an island off the coast of Japan. So again, it's quite insular, and it tends to be, it is one of the five identified blue zones, they call them, in the world. And these blue zones are areas where, due to three things, diet, genetics, and culture, have led to a very healthy population living well, even past 100, they're into their hundreds. So, what is it that they do in these five zones that contribute to that? And so one of them is a very strictly vegetarian diet. They eat some protein. I mean, we do need protein, but as older, of course, we need less, but low protein. The carbs, at least in the Okinawan diet, actually, rather than rice or potatoes, they are using, they're eating sweet potatoes. That was like that carb, very, again, nutrient dense. They don't eat as much. So the slightly 80% maybe of what you would normally eat, a regular normal diet that we would call the normal diet. So it's calorie restriction, which they found to be better for your cells. You're not creating, more cells. There's some slowing of the cell generation. Uh, they also, so that's sort of the diet, a very healthy plant-based, like the Mediterranean diet is in there in Greece. The Seventh Day Adventists, again, actually in Loma Linda in California, again, all vegetarian towards that Mediterranean diet. And that's where the Okinawan diet fits in there as well. It's not just diet. There is a genetic component, about maybe 40%, they say is genetics. And then there's a diet, and then there's the culture of keeping people mentally active, socially active. They're contributing way into their 90s, hundreds with their community, actually the economy. They're still working, they're walking, the hills. So it there is a balance. And I think we all, have a component. We all, our health is affected by those three things. But there's just sort of an area there where I think the genetics and um, are closer, so that 4 or 5 generations come from, like, a few families within those areas, so there's less effect of other cultures, I guess, mixing with that. So that is a big part of that.
Well, first, I'd just like to say that from this, we learned that the smallest of changes someone makes to their lifestyle, like we see reflected in the Okinawan diet, it can have immense impacts on that diet's, I guess, effectiveness. And so, to tie all
Yes.
of this together, a final but important question I'd like to ask Miss Karras is that what changes can the average or normal person make to their diet to improve their overall health? And maybe if you could touch a little even on cholesterol.
Okay, well, definitely. Well, in fact, it's funny we mentioned about the cholesterol, because that can be a genetic component. Like those people that have a lot of trouble regulating the cholesterol that they do eat can be a genetic component. So that is definitely part, is just recognizing what you're coming to the table with. Is it good genetics? Are there certain, things that you have to watch within your diabetes, watching what works for you or what has to work for you because of that. Cholesterol is in a lot of people's minds these days. And food in cholesterol, like there's dietary cholesterol and there's the cholesterol that actually the body makes itself, called lipoprotein. So the little, little structures that go around our body, and there's fat on the inside and protein on the outside. And it's not a bad thing to have. You're going to have cholesterol in your system because your body is making it because it's required. In fact, it's a waxy substance, and often your arteries, your brain tells your body to go to an artery, the cholesterol, because it will repair an artery wall. So there is a chance you're going to see cholesterol in the arteries, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's your body is creating that or sending it. So what happens is there's the two types of cholesterol that people will hear about: the high density, which is like the good; the bad cholesterol, which is the low density, is the one that travels, that takes cholesterol through your bloodstream, like throughout your body. It's not a bad thing, again, because, like I say, we do need it. It's just you don't want it in large quantities. We just have to control the amount of cholesterol that we ingest. So, it's still good to have like eggs and liver and fish oil, just, less of it. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, you should keep it in check. Again, go to your physician, make sure. And just, if you're not eating a lot of foods with cholesterol in them and you still see your numbers going up, then you're one of what they call those hyper responders. Keep active. It's good for your mind, and it's also good for your body, obviously. Get good quality sleep. It's always important. And one of the biggest things that's quite important, it's coming to light now, is that your gut health, it's like your second brain, and there's always a connection between your brain and what's going on in your gut. And that is also your immune booster. Your gut, it's an immune booster as well. So we have so many antibiotics these days that if you have to take those, look at probiotics, go to your doctor, dig in the soil, get back to, nature. That an hour in the soil can change your gut health. So those are, I guess, some of the things that you can take away, and hopefully lead a very long, healthy, happy life.
Wow. I learned a lot from today's session, and I'm certain that our audience has also gained a lot of knowledge from this.
Well, thank you.
Ms. Karras, I'd like to thank you for your time speaking with me today.